Hey guys, Ben here and welcome to the first video of Interview with the DM. The DM today is, well, my own DM and also my best friend, Andy. So Andy would like to introduce himself a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, yeah, thank you for having me. I'm Andy, psychologist, amateur voice actor, and dungeon master in a variety of campaigns, adventures, and ongoing one-shots and what have you.
Well, thank you for coming along. I know you're a busy man. So I've got 10 questions for you and I'd like you to answer honestly. I know you will because, you know.
Relating to DMing and D&D as a whole, correct?
Yeah.
Before we begin, just a swift question to you. Um, as you've said, you're a player, an active player in one and more of my campaigns. In doing this little interview, it's going to be a little bit like in the Wizard of Oz, where you peel back the curtain to realize that the Wizard of Oz isn't some omniscient demigod; he's just some dude in a booth. This will be a little bit like that. So, you sure you're fine with that?
Yeah, I'm perfectly fine. I mean, it's be interesting to see how things work right from
Yeah,
the
I
other end.
mean, if anything, it'll inform a lot of the gameplay for you, and you never know, it might even persuade you or inspire you to DM at some point.
Oh, we've already discussed it's something I'd like to do at some point, but, you know.
Absolutely.
But, right, so start with the first question. What made you want to be a DM, being a player originally?
Well, honestly, at the time itself, it was more necessity than any sort of active volition. Um, a group of us, when fifth edition started coming out, was more widely advertised, and we were in a position where we're like, "Hey, we've played this in the past. We really want to get into it again. You know, playing it as more like teenagers and now as adults."
Hmm,
We had a bit of free time, and it was a hobby we wanted to pick up, being into similar sort of interests like tabletop wargaming and what have you. Um, and me, I like to think of myself as somewhat creative, so I had this world I wanted to create, and was excited to like share with others. So uh, taking the role of the DM seemed to be the most conducive route to doing
interesting. So, how much work do you have to do behind the scenes to be a DM?
that. Is you're trying to keep your channel PG, right?
Preferably, but we'll go ahead.
Julian noted just for a bit of self censorship. Um, a metric shit ton, generally. Um, I find that, like, as a general rule of thumb for DMing in general, whether it be a one shot, a set length adventure, or an ongoing campaign, I find a good golden rule is to do 1 hour of planning per 1 hour of intended gameplay. So if you're going to do a 4 hour session, 4 hours of prep work, etc., etc. But I personally find myself doing a lot more. Generally, world building. Like that's one thing I say to a lot of versioning DMs is it's all well good, going in, really zealous in creating your worlds. But like a lot of the world building I find happens between sessions, and as a result of your players' actions and decisions because you'll create this world, but they'll do something which will in turn affect that world. That is, if you do create a dynamic world. But yeah, I'd say a minimum of 4 hours. But I've done anywhere, as you know, I run weekly sessions, 2 sessions a week for ongoing campaigns. So I do a minimum of 8 hours planning, but I've done upwards of 20 hours planning a week.
So it's almost like a full-time job then, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it is essentially a part-time job, except you don't get paid in money. You just get paid in, um, well, in seeing your players be happy and or angry, and you get to engage in collaborative storytelling with a group of your friends.
You also do a lot of planning ahead though as well, don't you?
Oh yeah, yeah, like whether it be storylines, ongoing narratives, um, dynamic worlds. Like as you know, the two weekly campaigns I currently run, are occurring relatively concurrently in the same world. So actions and decisions that one party makes directly or indirectly affect the world in a way which will impact the other party. So there's a lot of bookkeeping and almost thread weaving behind the scenes. That and all the NPCs in the world have their own objectives and motivations. Some less ambitious than others, but generally the bad guys as well. They are always actively doing things or have you. While you guys are progressing in this world, so are they. And so I have to do the planning on their end as well.
So double the work then, really, isn't it? So it's a lot of work
Essentially, yeah.
Well, I appreciate your time you put in because I enjoy the session. So
I'm very glad.
So when your players don't want to roleplay, how would you go about encouraging them?
Well, it depends on how invested they are in the game itself. If they're just trying the game for the first time, then I won't put too much pressure on it. You know what I mean? They're just seeing what the game's about, seeing what it has to offer, and what have you. So generally, there are more experienced players in the game, so we can see them engaging in the role play and see that's one facet of the game that it has to offer them. And then they can also roll dice, kill orcs, and see there's other things that the game also has to offer. If they're more, I don't want to say experienced, but if you've been playing the game for a while, I mean, Matt Colville did a video a while ago on different kinds of players, in which he spoke about. He has various categories in which you can use to describe people, but he generally spoke that there are two kinds, being audience members and players. There are some players which are they are absolutely invested in the game. They take it seriously. They enjoy the narrative, but they are fine to turn up every week, kill a bunch of goblins, listen to their teammates take more active role in just interacting with NPCs. But it doesn't mean they're in any way not enjoying the game as much, but they are happy to sit there and go along for the ride and enjoy it as more of an audience member. And that's completely fine. That's that's an absolutely valid way to play the game. I certainly was when I first played. But then you have you're more proactive. I don't want to say more engaged because the open quotes audience members are absolutely engaged. They're absolutely taking it seriously and playing along too. They're just not as in the game. They're not as actively interacting with NPCs or have you. Whereas like the more open quote players, they're the ones that enjoy interacting with NPCs, interacting with the other players or the party members in character and what have you. But to encourage it, what I like to do is like to kind of I get to know. I need to you need to know the player. If they are a audience member, that's absolutely fine. I will, that's how they want to play the game. So I'll leave them to it. I'll absolutely encourage it. I will give them the opportunity to do it. Perhaps during a discussion where the player might be engaging with the King's Council, discussing a quest they are about to be set upon. It would ask for opinions from the party, and it might say, Valio, what do you think? And that's an opportunity to either engage with it or just or not. But it's important not to put said player in, not to force them into an awkward situation, because they're either, if they engage with it, that's absolutely brilliant, but they might not, and not only does it feel awkward, but that can also detract from their fun as well, making them feel uncomfortable. And the cardinal rule of the game is to make sure that everyone is having fun. If everyone's having fun, then you're doing your job correctly. And I know I'm going on a bit of a tangent, but I have to encourage roleplay. I offer opportunities, and if they're still shying away, it's perhaps asking them. Maybe they want to engage more and want to roleplay, but they don't know how, or they feel shy, or feel embarrassed because they're doing it in front of people, which those are absolutely plausible. That's completely fine. I know I certainly was when I first began. But I find that the more you play, or the more comfortable you get with, with the people you play with, the easier it becomes. But then again, I'm a bit biased because I'm a dungeon master, so I have to roleplay. I have to become the snotty guard that's giving you shit at the gate, or the cowardly goblin that's begging for mercy, or the sleazy shopkeep that's trying to overcharge you a little bit.
Well, it's just exactly like when I first started playing. It wasn't so much I was shy about role playing; it was more embarrassed. But eventually, as I'll play more with the same people, it started getting a bit easier.
Yeah,
So
it's like a little bit of self consciousness.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that's the thing about D&D, both players and DMs alike. That is absolutely a thing that occurs. It still does now and again for me with certain roles that I have to undertake. But I find you just have to kind of forget yourself a little bit, allow that suspension of disbelief to kick in, just throw yourself into the game wholeheartedly. And that's when you get the most out of a game. I think is when you engage with it fully and just allow yourself to have fun.
have enable yourself to have that release from the real world, in it really.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing about D&D. It's I find it can be very cathartic as well. It allows you to escape. I mean, that's it in its name. It's a role playing game. It allows you to be something beyond yourself.
Yeah, well, that's exactly why we all like playing, I suppose. I mean, I like being the big scary Death Knight count. So right. The question before: are players behaving in a way that you don't particularly like? How do you stop this?
Um, this is something that I've encountered more than I like, but what are you gonna do? I see this all over on like forums and stuff, such as my one of my players is doing this. How do I deal with this? Or uh, is my DM being a jerk? And it's you generally get a wall of text, and the answer time and time again is literally just this: talk to them. That's the only, not just in the game, just in life in general, really. That's the only way that you overcome any sort of adversity is the wrong word, but any sort of issue is just having a frank adult discussion about it. And that doesn't mean just cussing each other out and arguing. Just being adults, sitting down and just pointing out this is something that is bothering me, or this is something I take issue with. This is how it's affecting. Uh, can we together work a way to resolve this? And that's the only way I find is really affecting it. Like I find it's not just things either like one of my players acting in a way I disapprove of, or perhaps me doing something that inhibits one of my players' fun and something they take issue with me. I find that in some of the games I've run, and indeed in some of the games I still run, players take umbrage with things that other players are doing, and they'll say to me, "Oh, this player's doing this. Can you get them to stop?" Or "This player's doing this, and it's annoying me." And it's perfectly reasonable to have frustrations, but I'll tell them the same thing. I'll tell them the next time a problem arises is talk to the person that is causing this discomfort and work together to alleviate it. That's the only way that you will resolve it healthily. I mean, there are ways to resolve it unhealthily, but I wouldn't advertise them.
Well, it's very similar to any situation or problems you have with life with other people. It's just talk to them about it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
So this is a question which makes me smile every time I read it. How do you deal with overpowered characters in a party?
Well, that depends on how you define overpowered. Because let's say there's a character that's overpowered in combat, for example. That's the time the most likely to arise. Whenever they are not in combat, they no longer become underpowered and they shrink away. So if you're really having problems with that, you just put either less combat-related sessions to give the other players time to shine. But I know it depends. I mean, I find that overpowered characters either come from a result of a DM's misviewings, allowing certain things that, from DM oversight, like either allowing things from other sources that they haven't vetted properly themselves, or like maybe giving out one too many magic items, or giving something, giving a magic item beyond the player's current power level. But I find overpowered characters usually come from a mixture of this DM oversight and a lot of it can come from a lot of min-maxing, or which has also been known as power gaming or munchkins, as a pejorative term for it. I myself was / am. I won't say like a true min-max or like a power gamer. I just like my characters to be not optimal but efficient. For example, if I'm playing a cleric, unless there's some character concept that's drawing me elsewhere, chances are I'm going to play an optimal race for it. For example, if I'm playing a cleric, I'm likely to drift towards a hill dwarf. But that's because I love dwarves in general, and a hill dwarf is better for that class versus a mountain dwarf. But for various ways you can deal with overpowered characters, I mean, one way, and I don't like it, is to neuter whatever the problem is. For example, if you've got like a really overpowered weapon or something, is reduce the capabilities of it, which I don't like that, because you've given the party something and then you're taking it away from them, and they will 9 times out of 10 will feel that you are taking something away from them, and that doesn't make anyone feel good. You feel shitty because you've made the mistake. They feel shitty because they feel like, oh, I've worked really hard to get this great item and now it's being taken away from me for some unperceivable reason. Which I don't really like that. Another way to like combat it is to, rather than nerf their thing that's making them overpowered, is to make it necessary to increase the difficulty or the scope of their what they're up against. For example, what might have been, I don't know, what might have been an adult blue dragon or something, give it an extra ability that requires them to have this strength to overcome it. But there's the various ways and nuances you can use to deal with overpowered characters in the party. But one question I'd ask is, do you have to? I mean, yes, they can be overpowered. Yes, they can easily overcome challenges you put before them. But is that a bad thing? I mean, I find that yes, it can. I mean, some players might argue, this is too easy. There's no challenge in it. Which that's fair enough. That's a reasonable concern. But also, if the players have worked to get to this, open quotes, overpowered state, let them be overpowered. If they want to be able to like one-shot a dragon or something, or take on a dragon much easier than how it would have been, good. The players have worked hard to get to that point. Let them feel strong. Let them see how far they've come. Because also, like in the example of just increasing difficulty, if they were having trouble before, they've become overpowered and they're still having trouble, they'll feel, what's the point in having gone through all this trouble to get this strength? You know what I mean? Whereas being stronger, making the challenge easier, they can see that the strength is having an effect. They can see that they have become stronger. They have something to gauge their power against. And also, it makes them feel cool in combat. They might be, I mean, they might not be, but they might be, their character might be focused, entirely on combat. And they might have made their characterization towards that, being a really strong fighter, for example. Yes, they might have a personality and such, but they might have put their focus towards this. Cool, let them run havoc and let them absolutely decimate the combat challenge put before them. And chances are, they'll feel happy they've absolutely, they've defeated an opponent. That's pretty cool. And then when it comes to the more role-playing aspect, they're happy they've done what they've done, and then the other players can engage, might be more aligned towards role-playing and might find pleasure in doing that. And so then they get their juice out of the game.
Well, It's
I,
sorry, go on.
I was just about to say I apologise if I'm rambling.
Oh no, it's perfectly fine. It's exactly what I want. It's as I said, I want completely honest answers, and that's what you're giving me, so it's no
Oh,
problem.
that's what you'll get.
It's a lot like in my party at the moment. It seems my character's very well, I won't say he is overpowered in combat, but we've had this discussion with one of my party members. It's simply because with all the trials and all the sessions I've used that character, the hours I put into that character, and it makes me feel good.
Exactly, exactly. For example, I know one of your characters, you've got some pretty interesting things going about them, like items, character traits, what have you. But the character itself has grown, like, as a character. Not just, like, XP and levels and what have you, but, like, personal growth. They've role played, they've gone through things themselves, they've gone through personal quests on their own, and what have you. And so, yeah, absolutely, they deserve to be. They might be overpowered in the sense that they're stronger than the rest of the party in combat, but they've earned that power. They've gone through the ball ache of doing said quests or said experiences. So I wouldn't so much say they're overpowered, objectively, in the grand scheme of things. They're not so much overpowered as they are rewarded for the experiences they've undertaken.
Well, there's one particular session which springs to mind whenever whenever we talk about personal sessions or adventures. I think you know which one I'm on about.
Absolutely.
Um, so this is another one because you've actually done this a few times to fill in for missing players. How do you feel about DMs who also play characters in the party?
In what regards? Is in filling in for a missing player, or is in playing their own PC in a party?
A bit of both, really. I mean, how do you feel about ghosting a play character? Oh,
It's ghosting someone else's player character. I don't like doing. When I say I don't like doing it, I have no problems doing it per se, but I don't like doing it because there's a responsibility of keeping their character safe, and I'm of the belief that you've got to have logical consistency within the game. And so let's say the player is missing for the session in which you guys face the big bad evil guy of the campaign. I will play the villain to their efficiency. I will act exactly how they would act. I will use, I will use all of their personal knowledge and all of their capabilities, which means but also I will play the missing player's character as they direct and how I believe they would act. So if they end up in the path of the bad guy, given chances are this bad guy is going to do what they can to defeat them, and if that ends up resulting in their death, then the player's pissed because their characters died for what they believe is no fault of their own. They weren't there, which is fair enough. Uh, but there's also the feel like of, ooh, do I do this thing because it will, because I'm behind the screen, so I know everything what's going to occur. In the sense that if I do this, they will die because I'm playing them at the same time, so I know their hit points. I know what this spell will do. If I don't do that, I'm cheating all the players and myself because I'm not playing them believably, and there's not that logical consistency. However, if I just ice that missing player's character, it's also not fair on them. So I don't like doing it for that reason, but I don't mind doing it if I have to. But also, I think that the player should want to play the game. You know what I mean? They'll want to be there. They'll want to experience what their character's doing. It's not satisfying, going and killing an ancient black dragon, for example, just versus being told next week. Oh, so what happened in session? Oh, Valvatore killed an ancient black dragon. Oh, yeah, that's cool. I wish I'd have killed himself. You know what I mean?
yeah.
But also, it's a lot more work behind the screen as well. I mean, I've already got X amount of NPCs, villains, characters, and such to play. It's another drop in the bucket, but with added responsibility. But as for DMs who play their own PC, sorry, DM PC, within a game. I really don't like it, and I will strongly argue against doing it to any DM that's thinking about doing it, because you cannot play the character without cheating. I don't care what anyone says, and I will argue them to the ground about doing it, because you can't interact with the party with any form of sincerity or any form of any form of genuineness, because either, let's say, you're in a dungeon, you're doing a dungeon crawl, you come across a riddle. Anything you suggest, it's going to be scrutinized and cannot have any form of integrity behind it, because either you tell them the correct answer, and because you are the DM, you know this, and yes, there's player knowledge versus character knowledge, but you cannot separate that, because you are the DM, you are the world, you are this many-faced god, you are the world and the player and the riddle. So you either give them the correct answer, knowing it's the correct answer, and then it's like, well, what's the point in this riddle? Or you try to, even if you sincerely try and separate player knowledge from character knowledge and give them, suggest to the party, hey, why don't we try this? It's either going to be correct, and then what's the point in the riddle? Or it's going to be incorrect, and then the party cannot trust anything that character is going to say. And in that you know everything's going to occur, so it just lacks any form of integrity and genuineness. So stripping that away, you just relegate it to a combat bot, and those tools already exist for a DM. They're called an NPC.
So it just seems like you're making a lot more work for yourself, really, doesn't it? As well.
Yeah, exactly. It's just don't do it. I mean, chances are one of your players is going to want to DM at some point anyway, and that'll be your opportunity. Or you never know, you might become a forever DM, and one of your players might never decide to take up the reins and run a game for you so you can play for once. No, I absolutely love this role. I won't give it up for the world. But yeah, as a DM, I wouldn't run a DMPC. Wait for another person to DM, take part in their campaign, or maybe, on holidays, encourage your players to run a one-shot and play a character in that.
Well, it's definitely something to consider with myself wanting to DM at some point. So it'll be interesting to do.
Oh, absolutely.
So, how do you introduce new players to Dungeons & Dragons?
Well, it's a really strange experience, because there's no set way to do it. I've done it in various different ways myself. I find that anyone who finds out about the game, it's generally through word of mouth. They'll either be hear about it through someone talking about it, or they'll be talking to a friend about it, or one of their friends will say, "Hey, we need a new player for his weekly game. Fancy joining in?" And it's kind of strange. I find that what I do is I encourage anyone who's going to do it to do. I mean, it kind of scares new players away sometimes, but there's a lot of background reading to do, I find, which I encourage. And I generally say, if they're planning to join the campaign long term, I'll say, "Hey, here's a player's handbook. Read it." Because it absolutely helps us. Everything you need to know as a player is in that guide, is in that handbook, and I absolutely encourage, read that. Any questions, ask me. Absolutely, I do not mind answering them. But how to actually introduce them to the game itself, I found generally now what might be better is to do a one shot to introduce them to the game. Have a bit of everything. Have a bit of combat. Have a bit of role play. Have some puzzles. Show them what the game has to offer. So they can experience it for themselves. Or some people who want to know more about the game but are a little hesitant to, jump right in, but just prefer to dip the toe in the pool and go, "Ooh, this is a bit cold." They're absolutely free to sit in on some of my weekly sessions. That's been done before. I'll ask the party beforehand, "Hey, this person's interested in D&D and would like to learn more about it. Do you have any objections to them sitting in silently and just listening into our session?" And most of the time it's "No, I don't mind, feel free," because, I find that anyone, I mean, you do get one or two less than inclusive individuals, but most of the time, people who play the game love the game and want other people to love the game as well. and generally inclusive and reasonable bunch, so it's not a problem. But yeah, either let them sit in, listen to a game, or throw them right in the deep end and say, "Hey, do you want to play?"
Well, that's very similar to actually how I started, simply because he just asked me. And I said, go on then, why not? we spent the money on the Monster Manual, Dungeon Master Guide and PHB, so...
I remember the PHB and the Monster Manual came out, with quick succession. I remember waiting a long time for the Dungeon Master's Guide to be released. It made playing that campaign so awkward, especially like as a new DM at that time, which I found myself bullshitting a lot of it, which is kind of the same thing now, except I've got a guide there for me.
A guide how to bullshit, yeah.
Yeah, basically, the game's all smoke and mirrors. It's basically, it reminds me of a statistics book I found a while ago, How to Lie with Statistics. That's especially what the Dungeon Master's Guide is. How to lie with flavor.
Well, next question is actually quite relevant to the previous one. I feel like it is anyway. How important is a session 0?
Oh man, I mean, if you'd asked me this a year ago or something, I said, "What's session 0?" But I found now, especially very recently, that session 0 is so important, man. As a DM, it allows you to outline your expectations for the adventure, campaign, whatever. Let's just outline your expectations, the type of game you're going to run, the type of world the campaign will take place in, what you expect from your players in response to flexibility, timekeeping, being engaged. It also lets you, I mean, I know myself, it allows you to impose, some sort of parameters. For example, some DMs, depending on the campaign or to own personal preference, might say, "Hey, you can play anything you want as long as you are non-evil characters," which is fair enough. Or they say, "Hey, in this world, there are no elves, for example, so you can't play elves or half elves in this campaign." Which, as a DM, you're absolutely fine to do that. I don't like imposing too many restrictions, but that's just my DMing style. Some do, and that's perfectly valid. But it also allows the players to set their guidelines as well. What they expect from the DM, what they expect from the game. Also allows you to, during that session, you create characters together, because generally people create the characters separately, and which is fine, but then I find if you do it together, it's, you're more getting into it together, you're learning stuff, you're doing stuff together, and you can go, "Oh, that's really cool, maybe we can both know each other from this," or, "Hey, this sounds really just, why don't we be brothers? Why don't those characters be brothers?" "Oh yeah, that's cool." That sort of thing as well. It also helps with, like in my session 0s, I like to say, "Hey, since you guys will be working together as a party, there will be a reason you guys are carrying on." For example, a common example of starting a campaign is you all meet in a tavern, right? It's a tried and true example of starting a campaign. I did it with my first one when I first came back into DMing proper. But I don't like it because, I don't know, you're like, "Okay, you all meet in a tavern. Introduce yourselves." You don't know each other. You're 4 random individuals that are in this tavern. And then, someone runs in and you get the quest, screaming, "The blacksmiths have kidnapped the goblin's daughter." And so, "Oh, we need people to go rescue them." We're like, "Yeah, sure, we'll do it." But then, the town is under siege, and they must fight, they band together to fight off the threat. However, once their reason for fighting together, once that threat is gone, they've no logical reason to progress forward together. There's nothing keeping them together other than, "Hey, you're cool, you're on the back there, want to hang out a bit." You know what I mean? But there's nothing keeping them together per se. But in that session 0, you can say, I like to say to my players, say, "Okay, it would be incredibly helpful if you guys knew each other beforehand or had a reason for adventuring together. Figure that out." And even something like, especially one of the campaigns that's currently running, it's just an answer as simple and almost meta as we're a band of adventurers. Yeah, we're an adventuring party together. That's fair enough. I know him from way back when. I know him when we're on a ship and we crashed and burnt it. Us two are brothers. You know, but at least you know that. At least you have that reason to go together. You're a band of adventurers working together, and you all know each other beforehand. But also, most importantly, you can arrange time to play as well. I mean, I love consistency. Whether it's the first, every Monday or every second Wednesday, or every 2 weeks, or once a month, like on the 30th or something, or on the 28th. But as long as you can arrange a time to play, I love consistency. But that's the thing about playing D&D as an adult. It's not always that easy. Time doesn't allow. Shifts don't align. People go away on business and what have you. So it gets a lot more contrived. But I generally say that you do not leave the session 0 without having arranged a time to start the first session. Even if that's the last thing you discuss, saying, okay, but as long as you are able to say, right, we are going to meet next Thursday at 6 p.m. That is the official start time for the session. It just helps, organizationally, operationally, and creatively. It just all helps. It all mingles into one, and it just makes everything gravy.
Well, that's the main problem being an adult. It's you can afford all the nice expansions, the books, the dice, and all that stuff, but you never have time to actually use them.
Yeah, you have money, you have energy, you don't have time.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but that's life here, I'm afraid, isn't it?
Absolutely. Say hello.
So, I know this one's quite important question to you because you try everything in your power to avoid it, but how do you avoid railroading?
Oh boy. It can be. It's weird. It's one of those things that can be either incredibly simple or incredibly difficult. If you're running a homebrew campaign, it's so much easier. Purely because it's your world, you know it, you know your storyline, so you can easily adapt and work on the fly. Especially true if you're running a sandbox game, in which case the other players can do absolutely anything they want. I absolutely detest railroading because no matter what the players do, they are going to end up in this situation anyway. So but you're not playing a game. There's no point in the players being there. You might as well be telling them a story. And that's just not what the game is. And recently, in one of my campaigns, I'm currently running the players through Storm King's Thunder, or at least my version of it. And so through doing that, I find that there's a distinct difference between railroading and a story on rails. And railroading, no matter what they do, they're going to do this, they're going to meet this person. No matter what they do with that person, they're going to tell them to go here. And even if they don't want to do it, they're going to end up there eventually. And, it's just, I might as well just tell them a story on a campfire. What's the point of them being there? Whereas a story on rails, you have a beginning. That's how the campaign begins. You have a good idea of the middle and what could occur in this point, and you have a vague idea of how it's going to end. You have a rough idea of how it's going to end. However, how the players get to those points is completely up to them, and they can do whatever they like. You know what I mean? They could, I don't know, for example, they meet a open quote vital NPC, and they decide, I don't like this guy. This guy's a bit of a dick, and they decide to not engage with him. And they find another NPC that they do like, and then they do stuff for them. They do quests, and they end up going roughly towards the middle, and etc. etc. They will eventually get to those points, but how they get to them and why they get to them is completely up to them. But that does require the DM, to be flexible, to be creative, and to just feel, be able to let go of the reins.
Letting go of the reins, would you say that's an easy decision for the DM to make sometimes, or?
It depends, I find. It depends on what kind of person you are. I mean, some people are fine with it. They enjoy thinking on the feet and DMing by the seat of their pants kind of style, and they're able to improvise at the drop of a hat and able to react uh, quickly, creatively, and what's the word I'm looking for? Believably.
Yeah.
Um, we're able to maintain the sense of verisimilitude. But some DMs, they create this world, a little world in which the players play in. They create everything in painstaking detail to the point where they can become incredibly precious about it. And if they might create a really beloved NPC, but the players might take umbrage with them and decide, screw it, we're going to kill them because we're a bunch of bad hobos. And and they're like, oh, be kind of for like level 20 paladin. They become very precious about this world and have stuff set in stone, and they don't like it when the players interfere with this. And it's fine. This world building is absolutely fantastic. They might do an absolutely amazing job, and I applaud that. But in doing that, in not allowing players to do it, kind of defeats the point of creating the world in the first place. That's the thing as well. Being a DM, the campaign is not your story whatsoever. You create a world, you fill it with life, creatures, NPCs, and the like, and you let the players do. I would say absolutely do what they want. I mean, actions of consequence. If they decide, oh, I'm going to go into this town and kill the preacher, they should absolutely expect guards to come and arrest them and to be put on trial, etc., etc. But they are free to make decisions and to follow up those decisions with the consequences of them. But it is not your story. It's a collaborative exploration of this world and the ramifications of actions taken within it.
Oh, that was a very interesting answer. Thank you very much for
that. You're welcome.
The final question, and this is, I'd say it's quite a controversial question because there's many different people believe different things. But to you, what is metagaming?
To me, metagaming is the use of player knowledge. It's player knowledge versus character knowledge. To me, metagaming is the use of knowledge that the character themselves would not be privy to. For example, let's say, this is a pretty poor example for a fresh-faced character that's wet behind the ears and doesn't know many things. But just for example's sake, let's say you're fighting an adult blue dragon, for example, right? They breathe lightning and are resistant to lightning or immune to lightning. Let's say this character, this wizard, for example, they haven't read about, which is hard to believe, but just for example's sake, roll with it. They haven't read about blue dragons. They're unaware of them. They don't know about their lightning breath or the fact that they're resistant and or immune to lightning damage. Now, not using lightning bolt on them because the wizard is scared or they don't want to or they think something else might work or want to do something else is absolutely fine. But you, the player, saying, "Oh, I'm not going to use lightning bolt because I know that." I know that blue dragons are resistant / immune to lightning damage. That is metagaming because you, the player, know that they're resistant or immune to lightning damage, but your wizard character doesn't know that. However, if they use lightning bolt and realize it wasn't hurting it very much, that'd be fine because the character will build himself. Okay, that didn't work too well. Let's try something else. But you doing it purely because you are aware of that resistance is metagaming.
I think that might be one of the hardest things about being a player in D&D is being able to separate, character knowledge and player knowledge. I feel anyway.
Absolutely, but I find that when you really get into it and you become I don't want to say better, but become more comfortable, more experienced with role playing. It becomes easier because you get into that role, you think how they do it, you know their motivations, you know their knowledge. I find it becomes easier, but it can be really hard for someone from personal knowledge, from someone who's a long time DM, and someone who's known as being a long time DM for a while because. I've run the game for a while. I've run a lot of these monsters. I know their inherent strengths and weaknesses, but I need to remember that my character doesn't necessarily know that. If it becomes dangerous, I can say, for example, because I like to play something helpful for the party, so I'm usually either a life cleric or I might play a wizard of some sort. I can say, hey, am I able to do an H check, for example, to see if I remember any certain facts about this creature, rather than doing it, I could just play dumb. Like a lot of the time, I'll be playing in someone's game, known as being a long time DM, we'll be up against an adversary. For example, we were playing in a game where one of the players had never encountered a lycanthrope in the game before. And, we didn't think we'd be against something like that, so we didn't bother to silver as weapons. More for us. And they rolled to attack this, but they were still in their, humanoid form. They hadn't revealed themselves as a lycanthrope first. So we went to attack them with a great axe, and they critted as well, and rolled maximum damage. So we did 24 plus strength damage to the thing. And we said, okay. So as you strike against it, you find that the great axe just almost slides across its skin, appearing to have not harmed it in any way. And we said, what? How was that? It says, you don't know. And so they look to me. I'm like, I don't know, dude. Surely you know things about that. Oh, I absolutely do know, but my character doesn't know, and therefore you are not going to be told.
I feel like they'd be infuriated by it, but unfortunately that's how it is, isn't it, really?
Oh, absolutely. I have to explain that as well. I apologise. I don't know, let's pick a name. I apologise, Nathan. I'm not being a dick. I absolutely know and knew the reason why that would affect their creatures which are immune to attacks from non-silvered or non-magical weapons. But my character didn't know that. They might have had their suspicions, or they might have thought that's weird, but they didn't know. Therefore, my character would not say to you, "Hey, the reason you did absolutely jack shit is because of a lycanthrope, or because they're possibly a ghost or something." But I find that something very similar happens to when DMing and playing the bad guys. I'm like, "Oh, Andy, you're always trying to kill us." I'm not trying to kill you. Believe it, which is never believed, by the way. I'm not trying to kill you. The bad guy is trying to kill you. They have motivations. They see this intrepid band of adventurers constantly interfering with the plans, and they're incredibly infuriated and want to off you.
Pesky kids, I suppose,
Yeah, I would have got away with it too if it weren't for you meddling party members and your dumb familiar.
So, even though I said this be 10 questions, I am going to do a quick bonus question.
Oh, absolutely. Curveball.
This is one I know you're going to love.
Oh, God.
How does alignment affect gameplay?
It depends. It depends. I've gotten a similar question before with how do alignments work, and quick answer is they don't. How do they affect gameplay? Either incredibly in the most contrived and poorly justified way, or incredibly well. The thing about alignments is a lot of people feel like they are pigeonholed into situations which can, I believe, stems back from the old days of a paladin could only be lawful good. And they oh, okay, so they can all be lawful good, so I have to act in this manner. And that's where I find a lot of people, and including myself for the part time, I find there's a lot of misconceptions. Alignments are not pigeonholes in the sense that you have to act like this. They are descriptions of the way you act, of your character's morality, their beliefs, and their actions. If you, let's say, you're playing, I don't know, a lawful neutral wizard, for example, you don't have to behave in ways that are lawful and or neutral. It's just a description of your behavior. If you consistently act in a way that is not lawful neutral, then you are not lawful neutral. You are however you're acting. But it gets in, like, the whole pigeonholing thing, it gets in the way where you get paladins and oh my god, I'm so random, lol, villains acting lawful and chaotic stupid, respectively. For example, like, people might say, oh, I want to play like a Joker-esque character, but it's chaotic evil. Okay, that's a massive red flag, but sure, why not? Okay, I'm gonna go into this village and you're gonna murder spree. Okay, the guards come, they round you up, you go on trial, there's plenty of evidence, and you're hanged for murder. What? Why would you do that? I'm acting, I'm the character would act. Yeah, that's absolutely true. But you have actions and they have consequences. That, and more often than not, is evil people are generally, not always, but a lot of the time they are intelligent. So they wouldn't act, they wouldn't, if they are, serial killers, generally they will do these evil things or do things for evil reasons, but they are intelligent enough to try to get away with it or not do it in broad daylight. And I find that it's a fluid thing itself in the sense that it will change describe your behaviors. For example, I've known chaotic neutral rogues go from chaotic neutral to chaotic good because they don't operate within a sense of order and what have you. But more towards they don't believe in that, which is fine, but they are not out for themselves so much as they might do stuff to benefit them, but then they start doing more and more good things or what have you, while still remaining while still not wanting rules or order or what have you, but still doing good things. So they would remain chaotic, but they would no longer be neutral. They would become good. And then there's a whole misconception of law versus chaos. Lawfulness is not necessarily 100% obeying the laws of a land. While that is part of it, it's more order. And chaos is not just doing what you want. It's an opposition to order. It's an opposition to strictness and rules. It's more about flexibility and belief. It could be more law versus chaos, good versus evil, could be more effectively described as order versus disorder and selflessness versus selfishness and that sort of thing. Like, and it's all subjective as well, I find. For example, chaotic good. A classic example is Robin Hood. But one of my favorite examples of this, just for subjective versus objective alignment, is Batman. Objectively speaking, Batman is chaotic good. He does things for the right reason. He saves people. He looks after people. He fights injustice. He fights evil. He does things for good reasons, and he does good. However, he is a vigilante, which is against the law. He operates outside the law. He will fight law enforcement where necessary. He, rather than obeying the laws of the land and the rules and the order that is set by government by society, he circumvents that, deciding to follow his own rules, follow his conscience. However, Batman himself, I believe, would possibly view himself as lawful good. Good for all the reasons specified earlier. However, while he does not operate by the order of society, he operates by his own order. He very strictly follows a very stringent code set out by himself, which he will not adhere from. He will not kill, etc., etc. He has a very strict personal code from which he will not deviate. And while he does not follow, and that is the very essence of order, he will not deviate from that. So while he might not follow society's order and rules, he follows his own. So objectively and from a societal viewpoint, he's chaotic good, whereas from his personal viewpoint, he's lawful good. And that's why the whole alignment thing can get very contrived, because saying what's your alignment, the correct answer should be, who do you ask? You know, saying, what's your alignment? Your answer should be, I don't have an alignment. I have beliefs, I have views, I have opinions, and this is how I act. And that changes dependent on how the person changes, how they grow. And it's all very changed because it changes on a day-to-day basis, and how you feeling at the time. Um, and it can change also over like your lifetime. Like I say, it's a description, not a pigeonhole. As you all know, your character, while being extremely lawful, has is a neutral individual, looking out for himself originally, looking out for himself and those close to him, not going out of his way to help, but also not going out of his way to harm. But that's changed. Your character has drifted into the realm of evil, but he has also quite frequently drifted into the realm of good. And so it's a very fluid dynamic, and that's why it's really weird. The only time I really like to use alignment per se is either as a vague idea of how a person may act, but that's generally more informed by their beliefs, their personality, etc., their background. And with the various items and such, both created and in the DMG, magic items that can, for example, can only be attuned by an individual of a certain alignment. And so generally I might use it for that, like as a vague description for that, but again, it'll generally be a character growth thing, or if a individual vaguely fits that description. But you know what I mean? It's all very subjective and very character based and narrative based. That as well, and I really don't like things that force a change upon a character or force how they act. I'll change of course alignment, for example. I don't like the standard monster manual rules for lycanthropy. In that, where if they become a werewolf, for example, they get all this stuff, but their alignment immediately shifts to chaotic evil, which I don't like that whatsoever. Because one, you ask what is chaotic evil. Two, it forces the player to act in a certain way and force them to change. And so, really, if they're forced to behave differently, are they still that character? If you get me. And so that's why I try to circumvent that. Like as you know, I have my own rules for lycanthropy, and yeah, that's my very long-winded rambling on alignments. As I said before, people like Matt Colville, various other D&D YouTubers have done videos upon alignment and what have you. But those are my views.
Well, very interesting views. It's like you said, it seems to be something you develop into rather than being told what you are.
Absolutely.
Like it's a fluid like idea really, isn't it? Like 1 minute you could be this lawful good bloke, doing anything his own way, but if it's his own way and not the way of society, he could be seen as something completely different. So it's always hard to say, isn't it?
Exactly, and it also brings up the idea of doing the wrong things for the right reasons. When you keep doing that, are you still good? Yes, you're doing it for the right reasons, but you are doing. For example, there's the classic example of your brother's kidnapped. You adore him. You do what you can to get him back. You begin investigating his disappearance. You start interrogating people, tracking people down, killing those who are getting away. You start devolving into acts like torture for information. Yes, you are doing these things to try and find your brother who you love, who you want to be safe, who you want to rescue. But that does not negate the fact that these are evil acts that you are committing. And through doing this, you change the person. You might still think you are doing good, but you are still doing horrible things in the name of good. The road to hell was paved with good intentions. And it's a classic quote I find myself thinking every time I try to come up with a villain. A good villain thinks they're in the right. A great villain is.
Well, it's mutilation in itself is a very evil act, isn't it? So it's
Exactly.
destroying life. So
Yeah, like the mutilation of a Pegasus in order to create a nightmare, for example.
that's something we don't talk about. I think this interview is about you, not me. But I've got a cool mount now, so I'm not bothered. Anyway, so moving on from that, thank you very much. Well, definitely, I don't want to be moralised about how we also... Actually, I didn't harvest those tears, so...
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, you don't want people in the comment section saying, "Yo, your fun is wrong. You're playing pretend wrong."
Oh God, oh, I can't be doing all that. Anyway, thank you very much for taking the time to sit and speak and have your views.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's the pleasure's all mine. It's been a good time doing it. It's been a good time to think about my own opinions and to express them.
Well, it's hopefully some of the viewers will take something from this. It's been a long video, and thank you all for sticking it out to the end, and
Uh,
hopefully you got what you wanted.
yeah, and thank you for enduring my dulcet tones as well.
I have to deal with it every day, so nah, I love you really. But anyway, thank you very much, and I'll see you guys in the next one.